Join me as I dive deep into the complexities of Israel's Gaza crisis and try to understand what's really going on. The Gaza crisis has been a long-standing issue, with its roots tracing back decades. It's a conflict that's deeply entrenched in history, politics, and human rights. The situation has only grown more urgent, with recent developments drawing international attention and concern. Gaza is facing a multitude of challenges. One of the most pressing issues is the humanitarian crisis. The densely populated Strip has been under blockade for years, severely limiting the flow of goods and people in and out. This has led to widespread poverty, unemployment, and a lack of access to basic necessities like clean water and health care. The political tensions in the region are also a major concern. The conflict between Israel and Palestine is complex, with deep-seated historical grievances on both sides. The situation in Gaza is further complicated by the role of Hamas, which has controlled the Strip since 2007. The group's militant activities have led to a significant escalation in violence, with both Israel and Hamas accusing each other of aggression. Civilians in Gaza are bearing the brunt of the crisis. The densely populated urban areas have made it difficult for people to escape the violence, and the destruction of infrastructure has left many without access to basic services. The psychological toll of living in a war zone should not be underestimated, with many residents experiencing trauma and anxiety. The international community has been watching the developments in Gaza with growing concern. The United Nations and other organizations have repeatedly called for a de-escalation of violence and a return to peace talks. However, a lasting solution to the crisis remains elusive. The familiar, terrifying spectacle of war has returned to Gaza. Rockets, airstrikes, and now a looming ground invasion. But this isn't just another cycle of violence. The world is watching a crisis unfold that is different in scale, in context, and in its potential to ignite a wider regional war. In this video, we're breaking down the three key factors that brought us here, the historical scars that make peace so elusive, and the seismic shift in international politics that just changed everything. So what lit the fuse this time? It wasn't one event, but a cascade of incidents that pushed a tense stalemate into a full-blown war. First, tensions in Jerusalem reached a fever pitch. Clashes around the Al-Aqsa mosque compound, a sacred site for both Muslims and Jews, inflamed passions on both sides. These confrontations are never just about real estate. They're about identity, sovereignty, and deep-seated historical grievance. Second, a significant escalation in militant activity. Hamas and other Palestinian factions launched a massive barrage of rockets toward Israeli population centers, a move they framed as a response to Al-Aqsa. But the scale was unprecedented, designed to overwhelm Israel's Iron Dome and inflict maximum terror. Third, Israel's devastatingly powerful response. The Israeli government, under pressure to restore security, launched a relentless aerial campaign targeting Hamas leaders, military infrastructure, and rocket launch sites, often located in densely populated civilian areas. The result, as we've seen time and again, is a catastrophic human toll. But to understand why this conflict is so intractable, you must understand its history. The current violence is just the latest chapter in a story over 75 years old. The trauma of 1948, what Palestinians call the Nakba, or catastrophe, is not ancient history. It is a living memory for many. The displacement of hundreds of thousands of Palestinians during the creation of the State of Israel created a foundational injustice that has never been resolved. The right of return for these refugees and their descendants remains a core Palestinian demand and a major sticking point in all peace talks. Then came the 1967 war, where Israel occupied the West Bank, Gaza Strip, and East Jerusalem. For over half a century, millions of Palestinians have lived under Israeli military control, without citizenship or the right to vote for the government that rules their lives. The expansion of Israeli settlements in the West Bank has carved up potential Palestinian territory, making a contiguous state increasingly difficult to imagine. This is the powder keg, a brutal occupation, a militant group in Hamas that refuses to recognize Israel's right to exist, and an Israeli public that feels under constant existential threat. The cycle is vicious. Violence breeds trauma, trauma breeds hatred, and hatred fuels the next round of violence. Now, enter the game changer. In a major diplomatic shift, a growing number of influential European nations have officially recognized Palestine as a sovereign state. This is a monumental move. While over 140 UN member states already recognize Palestine, these recent recognitions by wealthy Western European democracies are different. They signal a fracture in the traditional Western consensus and represent a powerful symbolic victory for the Palestinian cause. It's a clear message to Israel that the international tide of public opinion is turning and that the status quo of perpetual occupation is unacceptable. The recent escalation in violence can be attributed to several factors. A series of incidents, including clashes between Israeli forces and Palestinian militants, have pushed the situation to a boiling point. International reactions have been mixed, with some countries calling for restraint and others openly supporting one side or the other. The historical context of the conflict is also crucial to understanding the current situation. The Israeli-Palestinian conflict has its roots in the early 20th century, with the establishment of the State of Israel in 1948. The displacement of Palestinians during this period, known as the Nakba or catastrophe in Arabic, is still commemorated by Palestinians today. A pivotal moment in the recent crisis was the decision by some countries to recognize Palestine as a sovereign state. This move was seen as a significant shift in international opinion and put pressure on other countries to follow suit. The implications of this decision are still unfolding, but it's clear that it has changed the dynamics of the conflict. The recognition of Palestine has also led to a renewed focus on the two-state solution. This proposal, which envisions an independent Palestinian state alongside the State of Israel, has been a cornerstone of international diplomacy for decades. However, its feasibility is increasingly being questioned, with some arguing that it's no longer a viable option. In conclusion, the Gaza crisis is a complex and multifaceted issue. The situation is dire, with civilians bearing the brunt of the violence and humanitarian concerns mounting. The international community must continue to push for a peaceful resolution to the conflict. If you have any thoughts on the Gaza crisis, please leave them in the comments below. If you want more in-depth analysis on this topic, be sure to check out my previous videos, where we dive deeper into the complexities of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict.